Hi.
Welcome to Nonsense Season 3, Episode 53, our big story and our second show of the week. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm Stu Little.
This time we're looking at the assault on reason, our war on science. Up next.
When you take away science,
yes,
we have nothing but contradictory beliefs and views left.
Okay.
I just struggle to find any part of my life at all that isn't driven by science.
You need good evidence. You need evidence about everything. You need to look at how something actually works and why it actually works and have proof for it.
Like, if you don't have that, then it's just opinions. And then it's just the loudest, squeakiest wheel. Whoever's got the loudest voice, which I also happen to have, is the one that wins.
And it also seems like this right now, anyway, and this willingness to disseminate and embrace misinformation, literally like I've never seen before in my life.
A willingness?
Yes.
It's a little more than a willingness.
An insistence.
It's a business. It's an insistence. It's the absolute only way.
Listen, Galileo was labeled a heretic and placed under house arrest until his death because of his powerful observational evidence. The earth revolved around the sun and not vice versa, as the church had stated. Faith.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this.
Okay.
Faith, believing in things you have no proof of, has a long history of being in direct conflict with science.
Of course. And this is where Galileo got it wrong. What he should have said was that he was sleeping in bed and a ghostly figure appeared to him and said, "The earth goes around the sun." And then they would have believed him. They would have totally believed him, right?
Would have been a lot easier, wouldn't it?
In the book, as opposed to being like, "Well, I looked through this tube with mirrors in it," and they're like, "Look, you nerd. Like, that doesn't make it mirrors in a tube. What's with you?" But that's the thing, is anybody that's got some belief, right? Something that's based on what their father's father told them.
Yeah.
The last thing
they just make up that their father's father told them. Sure.
Exactly. Those two things are the same thing. But yes, I appreciate that. The last thing they want is pesky contradictory evidence. And I think, especially in those cases, confirmation bias is real. If you've been telling yourself for the majority of your natural life,
yes,
this thing is true, and then there's evidence that contradicts that,
sure,
that's a real crisis. If that's the way you've been operating, you're just like, oh, no, I can't believe this.
So the church did its best to discredit Galileo, but the earth kept revolving around the sun. As we say, science doesn't care if you believe in it.
No, and the earth doesn't care either. At best, we are temporary inhabitants of this place.
Okay, the ignorance machine silencing science. Let's go.
I feel like that's an AM radio program, The Ignorance Machine.
Oh, totally.
On 640 KFI, The Ignorance Machine. Coming up next.
Should be the promo for the whole station.
Should totally be the promo for the whole thing. I don't want to bag on KFI, but whoever.
I don't even know what's on KFI these days. Science is under siege. In a world defined by its remarkable breakthroughs from vaccines to satellites, we're witnessing an alarming war on science. This isn't a clash of theories. It's a fundamental crisis of trust and evidence. In the public sphere, established facts on climate change, evolution, and public health, such as vaccination, are routinely challenged. Not with better data, but with political rhetoric, conspiracy theories, and motivated misinformation. This rejection is often fueled by a potent mix of populism, religious fundamentalism, and commercial interests that view objective truth as an obstacle. The goal of this campaign isn't just to debate, but to delegitimize the scientific method itself. When evidence is dismissed as opinion and experts are branded as elites and shills, society loses its most reliable mechanism for solving complex problems.
Wait, isn't science really our only mechanism for solving complex problems?
There'll be trouble. The consequences are real, manifesting as devastating delays in addressing global warming, outbreaks of preventable diseases, and a dangerously misinformed electorate. The future of human progress depends on defending the integrity of the scientific enterprise.
And Labubu's. It also depends on Labubu's.
So who exactly is at war with science and why? 4 groups come to mind.
Please deliver them to me.
Politicians, religions,
sure,
industry, and provocateurs.
You couldn't work anybody better in? You couldn't squeeze in war criminals or villains from Disney movies?
It's only a half-an-hour show.
Understood.
Politicians. Let's start with politicians.
Oh, my favorite. A recent report by the Union of Concerned Scientists, great name, by the way, and a report from the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, not as good of a name, detail ongoing attacks on scientific integrity within the executive branch.
Yeah.
Big surprise. These actions include a whole list of things, like, for example, firing or placing on administrative leave thousands of federal scientists and public health workers. Why were those the ones that were targeted?
Those scientists?
Yeah, because those are the ones that were really sapping up all the resource and adding no value.
It's a problem with the war on experts. It's because the administration would like you to listen to what they say and not people who are established experts.
Not SMEs. Who wants to listen to the subject matter expert when instead I can just make things up that feel right to me or push some other agenda?
Also, if I trot out Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and I make him say something incendiary, I can make you not think about the Epstein files.
The Epstein salt salts. Yeah, those things, they don't really make your bath any better. Oh man, it just seems so sort of obvious to me.
Yeah, kind of transparent.
I just think about the recovery of this. It takes so long to build this machine, to hire people. And I know folks go, oh, well, it's bloated and it spends a lot of money. I'm like, well, tell that to the people that didn't get the flood warning in Texas, right? I feel like they'd probably want to go back and say we'd spend this money. And that's the value of forethought and empathy, is you can be like, oh, maybe we should have some folks reporting on this.
And we're coming up on hurricane season. The lack of scientists at NOAA, the number of scientists who've been let go from NOAA, this is going to be a huge problem.
Another one, budgets slash for R&D at agencies like the NIH, the National Institute of Health. I get it, not the sexiest names ever, but the work they do is super important. There's so much good science that comes out of the NIH because it's funded by the U.S. government.
The fact that Anthony Fauci was tarred and feathered by the political community was pure insanity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here was a person who had spent his life studying infectious diseases. Yeah. And because our facts on the ground were changing, we were learning new things we didn't know. We started off, I don't know about you, I was washing every grape. Every single thing we brought in the house, we were scrubbing down because we thought it could be communicated on server. We had no idea.
Sure.
No, well, neither did anybody else. And so, yes, things changed. The way that we came about attacking the virus changed over time as we learned more and more about it. For this, he was lambasted, and that's insane.
Well, only by some people. I still think he did a great job.
He did a fantastic job.
But I think that speaks to the bigger push of making scientists and folks who have spent their entire life thinking scientifically, or in Fauci's case, trying to prevent infectious disease and save people's lives. Folks like that, just marginalizing them and demonizing them as, oh, he had some other interest. Someone, he was a shill for pharma or whatever. I don't even know what the current conspiracy theory du jour is.
That's always the attempt to discredit them. I mean, the church had for literally for centuries an attempt to discredit Galileo.
For centuries, for 400 years, 4 centuries.
Well, that's centuries.
I understand. I was saying that centuries, plural, meaning up to 4.
Canceling dozens of clinical trials and defunding grants for long-term studies. All this stuff is really important science. You will slow down human progress.
Yeah. I mean, in some cases, you might even reverse it. But when I get into things like this, I start trying to do what I do, which is apply logic and go, why would you do this? Why would you cancel these trials that are already in flight?
Right.
Well, and I go, oh, yeah. I forgot you can't apply logic here, right? This isn't logical.
You don't want there to be actual experts.
Yeah. Well, if you have no experts, then what do you listen to, right? You go back to the loudest mouth. Right. Loudest mouth wins. At the EPA, they've had scientific advisory boards and offices completely shut, dismantled and shut down. Generally speaking, I think the EPA does pretty good work. I realize it seems to run in contrast to commercialization and corporations, but in reality, what it's doing is saying we should all be good stewards of what we're doing here.
And some of us like to breathe and some of us like to drink clean water.
Yeah, those are bonuses.
Even though you might want to pollute the stream because it's a lot of money to deal with your toxic chemicals.
Sure. Someone's problem downstream. Why is it my problem?
Censoring and removing scientific data. Have you seen this from information from government websites?
Yeah.
This is politics at its worst. Backtrack just a second. Explain to me the scientific method.
Yeah, the scientific method is sort of the root of all of this, right? Yeah. The scientific method is simple. You create a hypothesis. So you basically ideate something that you think might be true. Mm-hmm. You then test it.
Test.
So you put real data against it. You analyze that data, and then you form a conclusion based on your data, right? That's sort of the first step to creating a hypothesis, testing it, and then determining a conclusion.
And then one more big step.
Yes, challenging that, right? So now coming back and challenging your own data and other people's data, right? So that could be peer reviewed. That could be saying, well, okay, we saw this here. What if we try to do this test this way? And if you keep doing that, if you iterate enough, you're going to find the right answer, right? You're going to find reality.
And the important thing is to seek reality, not to seek your conclusion.
Not to seek
You
confirmation
don't want to bend the data.
Yeah, which unfortunately a lot of folks do. I mean, that's how we've ended up with all sorts of I don't want to call it pseudoscience, really just misinformation around various topics, because people were like, oh, I'm going to take this data and twist it a little bit here because I've been saying this for so long. I can't reverse position now.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, actually you can. You're supposed to. That's the answer.
Let the data lead where the data leads.
And that should be the right answer. Now, this does get a little complex too, because sometimes you can look at data and you can string together conclusions and go, well, yeah, I can foresee here that ice cream sales precipitate shark attacks. That data seems to hold. I look at the graphs. I see it. Look, the line spikes. More ice cream sales, more shark attacks. The reason that you see a spike in ice cream sales and shark attacks is it's this weird time of year called summer.
Sure.
That's when that happens. More people go in the ocean, therefore you get more shark attacks. More people buy ice cream.
I don't mean to bring this back to baseball as I always do, but that's every single stat in baseball.
Totally.
You'd be surprised at just the amount of sheer lunacy in stats in baseball.
Yeah.
Where there's absolute no causality. There's mere
no causality. Exactly. So you got to analyze that data. This is where the peer review part comes in, right? Because some folks are legitimate bad actors. Some folks just make real honest to truth mistakes. And that's why you need your peers to come in and say, oh, hey, maybe here you should consider consider this. And then you get the hive knowledge of the whole group, preferably of SMEs that have all specialized and aren't on the take.
SME stands for, once again?
Subject matter experts.
Yes.
Folks that specialize in whatever the point is that's at hand.
Expertise does actually matter.
I mean, I think typically you can look at most of what I'll call the politician group, their movements against science, and typically they have some agenda that they want to forward, usually some authoritative one that's like, no, you got to listen to me. Don't listen to the science. I know better here.
Right.
I think that's typically the bucket that it falls into.
My donors like to frack.
Yeah, exactly. Or my donors have this belief based on their 2,000-year-old book. Therefore, I'm going to discredit all science that goes against that because I need my donors, I need my supporters to want me to do things.
All right, let's move on to the next one, which is religion.
Oh, now we're into the good stuff.
What are some instances of modern religion being at war with science? Religious doctrine often takes on an uncompromising moral stance on abortion, contraception, in vitro fertilization, embryonic stem cell research, seeking to restrict or ban scientific and medical practices based on theological claims about the soul and the beginning of life.
28 grams.
These are examples of when your faith, your belief in things you have no proof of, actually does affect the lives of others in a very harmful way.
But I read it in the book.
A mutual friend of ours made a big deal about what difference does it make what her faith is.
Yeah.
And how does her believing in this and that does not affect the rest of us. By the way, when you knew her, she had no faith. Now she's quite religious. And she makes a big deal about how does this affect you? Well, it completely 100% affects me because the people who follow your faith try to change the law.
Yeah.
The things they believe that they have no proof of, they want to cement in law.
I really think I can understand and appreciate the benefit of having a belief in a thing. It can be super sexy. It can explain a bunch of stuff that you don't have answers to. I get it. I can understand why folks will sort of fall into that.
Sure.
I'd rather know the answer. And if I don't know, I'd rather know that I don't know.
In finance, we always say this about dumb money. Dumb money ceases to be dumb when it knows it's dumb.
Sure. You have created some string of a story, right? From whatever mechanism it came from.
Yeah.
Some floaty being told somebody came out of the mountains of Sinai with 15, bang, 10 commandments, whatever it is. The point is you have a story. And then you told a story to somebody else. And then that person bought in. And then by the time you get to the, 20,000th iteration of this, now you got a whole bunch of people that are bought in. When you get evidence that contradicts this, it's kind of hard to be like, oh, no, oops, no, sorry, that wasn't, 6 days? No, it was 7 days. Is that long enough? No. 8 days? How long do we need to make the earth?
It's a figurative 7 days.
Oh, that's my favorite. Yeah. Sorry, you're jumping ahead here. That is my favorite. They're like, no, you can't take it literally. And I'm like, but there's a whole bunch that you take literally.
Sure.
So how do you know is there like a magic legend? Is it like one of those things I got when I was a kid and there's a little color code? When you look at it through the red lens, some of the words disappear. Like what's the trick? And it's just, oh no, it's just arbitrary.
And different magic lenses at different times. We
exactly.
interpret words different at different times.
My favorite is when I'm like, but it literally says it right here. And they're just like, well, you know what they mean. And I'm like, no, I actually don't. And more importantly, you don't either. Right. That's really the answer.
When you believe you have an infallible text in front of you, and then that text is proven to be wrong.
Yes.
You have to either come up with some way in your mind that text is not saying what you think it's saying.
Yes.
You've got to do a lot of gymnastics to work your way around that.
Which, by the way, sounds tiring. It just sounds absolutely tiring to do those gymnastics.
The amount of mental energy spent on this.
Which is why I find myself more inclined to be the religion of science because it is designed to be wrong. It is designed to be tested.
Yes.
And it is designed to be like, oh, that was the best information we had then.
Right.
But now it's actually this. I expect to be wrong the first couple of times and I expect to find the right answer. And I think that your truth in religion is the exact opposite, right? It's just as you said, it's infallible and it can't be updated. It can't be improved.
You don't want Galileo saying, well, actually, no, watch this. It does appear that the earth is orbiting around the sun.
By the way, if you read the current, I'll say like of the past maybe 20 years, church's spin on this, the Catholic Church's spin on this is not that, oh, we weren't at war with Galileo. It was just how he presented the data. He presented it as a truth and that was their problem. And I'm like, yeah, really? You put him to a lifetime of like house arrest? And that's what it was?
I can observe this. I can measure this. I can tell you this is what is happening.
Yeah.
You can look at my observations and you too can see this is what is happening.
If you have better observations, please share them. That's like the start of the scientific community. Like, let's collaborate on what these are. An example, even their current version of the story is the problem. They were saying we are the authoritative answer. And now someone else is representing themselves as the authoritative answer. And that's not okay. It's not the subject matter. It's that he represented himself himself as an authoritative answer, and that's the problem. Also, for those who don't know the end of the story, Galileo, this is from like the early 1600s, right? Wasn't taken off the list until the early 90s by Pope John Paul II.
1992, something like that.
Yeah, like he was just like cleaning up, like in the bottom of some drawer somewhere. He was like, oh, look at that. Galileo's still forbidden. Like, maybe I should clean that up.
Still have him on this list.
Like, hey, John Paul, thanks, man. Thanks for taking Galileo off the list.
We've been to space. We actually see how this works. We all have seen how this works. Maybe we ought to retract this. Maybe we ought to
That's totally how it went down. Some cardinal was like, excuse me, Your Holiness. So I'm pretty sure we've been to space. And he's like, what? No, we haven't been to space. Like, so as it turns out, we think Galileo was right.
Galileo might have had this correct.
By the way, just to bring this full circle, there is a group called the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. Okay. This is based inside Vatican City. This is part of, at least my understanding, this is part of the Catholic Church, right? This is a group of scientists within the Catholic Church. They put out a statement that I'll link to in the show notes in June of this year called Protecting Freedom of Science and Preventing Distortion of Scientific Truth, where they basically say they are worried about all sorts of things that are happening restricting science. This is the Catholic Church.
You know what? Good on them.
Absolutely good on them.
How much are you trying to hide scientific evidence when the church is defending...
The guys that left Galileo at home, like in a coffin in his house, not allowed into heaven. They left him at home for 400 years. Yeah. This statement is just amazing to me. It's like political misuse of science, ideological polarization, economic pressure and market forces. It's a pretty good list. I'm not saying the Vatican is the leader of the science community.
No, sure.
What I'm saying is you're in a pretty dark place when the Vatican is coming out and being like, oh, we should listen to the scientists a little more.
We should really listen to science. We should really pay attention to actual evidence.
Look, at the end of the day, I think the tension arises when either science is seen to encroach on religious claims about the supernatural, or when religion attempts to enforce literal, non-empirical claims on the natural world, right? That's where the tension seems to be generated from.
Let's move on to the next group, industry.
Oh boy, this is going to be fun.
The war on science is often a war for profit led by powerful industrial interests. This is a deliberate, organized effort by sectors like fossil fuels, tobacco, and chemicals to shield their commercial models from inconvenient facts.
Or as I like to call it, capitalism.
These industries don't just lobby against regulation, they use a sophisticated disinformation playbook to sow doubt and manufacture false controversy. They fund misleading think tanks, deploy fake experts to confuse the public, and relentlessly attack the credibility of scientists whose research threatens their bottom line. From climate change to public health crises, corporate warfare against evidence is real. Environmental protection, consumer safety, and global climate stability are the direct casualties of corporate warfare against evidence.
I mean, you touched on some of the big ones in there, right? The fossil fuel energy sector, that seems like number one on my list of ones that are just like, no,
sure.
Everything's fine. There's no global warming. There's no climate change. What are you talking about?
Tobacco, the cancer. I mean, there's been actually really good movies about this.
I mean, tobacco is another one that's such a fascinating story. Arguably, even like even less time that they had from understanding this was bad to it being bad to then it's sort of like, I'm not gonna say it's been resolved, but to it being resolved. Fossil fuel's been around longer, and we're still sucking on that teat.
Both industries trying desperately to hide the fact that they were causing problems, big serious health crises.
With the fossil fuel folks, they would spin up whole new, quote, industries designed to help make their products feel less terrible. Like, for example, recycling. My understanding of most of the recycling movement was stood up and funded by the petrochemical companies.
Explain why.
Because they wanted their plastics that, you put into the ground and they're there forever. They don't break down. Sure. Like, no. We're just going to recycle them. And for a while they funded that until they stopped. And now idiots like me are still putting stuff into blue bins. And my understanding is the vast majority of that is not actually recycled. Some of it is, most of it isn't.
Somebody's making that nice fabric that's on the inside of the car seats now. That's the recycled plastic. Have you felt what car seats feel like now? That's recycled bottles.
I got to say the Apple post-consumer bands and stuff that are made up, they're really good. It's really incredible. But
I know it's a very, very small amount of this plastic that's getting reused, but the stuff we're doing with it is kind of cool.
But still, the vast majority of it does not get recycled.
Both Coke and Pepsi are using plastic now that does disintegrate.
Oh, that's cool. That's super smart. Yeah. Tobacco's another super interesting one, right? I feel like those folks wrote the Disinformation Playbook. They were the ones that really kicked it into high gear.
They're business class studies. They're disinformation. I mean, literally, they are B school studies.
Yeah.
And they were lying about how addictive it was, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In between smokes. They couldn't finish the whole slide deck without going outside and having 2 more smokes.
Nicotine is just insanely addictive.
I mean, remember we talked on the show about how we had to give an exception. The FAA gave an exception to pilots to be able to smoke in the plane because they were worried about the withdrawals of the pilots.
Industry has a history, especially in the last 100 years, of pushing science under the rug and trying to delegitimize actual science.
And this is happening even in pharma, right? An industry that I speak pretty positively about because the folks that I know in pharma, I believe are doing really great work. There are still folks, well-known companies that are not small, not the Martin Scarellis of the world, that will try to manipulate their data in some cases. There have been a couple of case studies about trial data that was sort of massaged, that's me being very kind, to showcase the positive sides of a drug trial. Now, I believe it to be the vast minority.
Don't they mostly get busted for that?
The ones we know about. I think the vast majority of them are caught. There are policies in place, at least there have been policies in place, that make it very hard to do that. It's very hard to cheat on those trials. And those trials are done insanely ethically. But look, at the end of the day, industry, they're up there with I think one of the biggest proponents of junk science.
And they often are promoted by provocateurs.
Weird.
Weird.
It's almost like they're paid or something.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Provocateurs, they don't just disagree with the data. They specialize in manufacturing like doubt and weaponizing that misinformation.
Because you don't have a show otherwise.
Right? Exactly. It's just not interesting. And branding objective experts as untrustworthy, because how else would you otherwise trust Mr. Rogan or whoever in the hell you're listening to?
Sure.
And like they'll replace peer-reviewed research with conspiracy theories and my favorite term of all time, alternative facts, whatever that means.
Sure. That actually came from the political office, but yes.
Although I would like to just remind everybody that I still own alternativefactsoflife.com. I don't know what to do with it, but I think it's the funniest thing in the world. The objective to these folks, to me, is it's absolutely clear.
Yeah.
They want to dismantle the public's trust in the scientific method itself in the quest for clicks and views and likes.
Sure,
right?
You got to say things that are outrageous. You've got to get people
why
to
else
listen.
Did anybody
Pay
listen
attention.
to you, right? Which also like drives me a little bananas when people are like, well, the algorithm feeds me all this. I'm like, no, the algorithm feeds it to you because you respond to it.
Yeah.
Like if you look at my Instagram feed, it's a bunch of dudes restoring cars. It's a bunch of home automation equipment. Like that's the stuff that I respond to. I don't get triggered by all this other crap that's out there. Like, the algorithm really isn't at fault. It's just giving you the things that you respond to. Provocateurs generally, right? Their approach on this, it reminds me of my favorite poster. Remember those demotivational poster series?
Oh, sure,
like,
of course.
Like the anti-motivation. And it said really big, it said consulting. And it said, if you're not a part of the solution, there's good money to be made in prolonging the problem. And I feel like that applies to most of these shows and influencers where it's just like, I'm going to just keep stirring the pot. That's going to get more people to watch. Therefore, I become more interesting or valuable.
I think you're unwilling to keep an open mind on some of these things. You got to have an open mind.
What?
The earth is flat. You got to have an open mind on this.
Yeah. Here's the problem. I've watched boats go out from port and magically disappear from the bottom to the top. So try me again. What else you got? What else should I keep an open mind about?
Neil deGrasse Tyson used to talk about, yes, you have to have an open mind. You should be open to new ideas all the time, but you don't want it so open that your brains all spill out.
And again, I'm stopping short of throwing the platforms under the bus because I've come across exceptionally smart people that are experts in their field, whether it's, really exciting stuff like immunotherapy or infectious disease. And to see these folks talk directly and debunk a lot of the other garbage that's out there is really fascinating to me. To see them deliver it in a form that's not just a white paper that I'm reading on PubMed is super interesting to me. So the medium to me isn't the problem. The problem is a bunch of people like to believe things that promote whatever it is they already believe.
Sure.
And then those things get amplified. To me, that's the problem. I think a lot of the what I'll call science-minded people, you did well in math, you did well in science, you're the nerd.
Sure.
And I think a lot of them, fairly or unfairly, developed a little bit of a complex of like, look, I know what the hell I'm doing here. Because frankly, they do. You went to medical school for 8 years, 4 years of undergrad and 2 years of a master's program and a doctorate thesis. Like you spent a lot of time in your field and you've earned the right to be considered an expert in that. And if you're constantly getting called a non-expert or a shill or some other crap like that, I can understand why you're just like, yeah, no, you're all a bunch of mouth-breathing idiots.
Sure.
The problem is, I think the mouth-breathing idiots have been like, oh yeah, well, you know what? Now I'm just not going to believe in your science. I'm just going to just discredit everything that you do. And that's a problem, right? And I think a little bit of that, not all of it, but a little bit was brought on by the science-believing folks themselves because they took an attitude that was, no, we know the answer to this. You don't.
Well,
you're not wrong.
You were to go through 8 years of medical school or, whatever it was.
Yes.
4 years residency, how you might be a peer who can then object to what they're saying.
Well,
but unless you've done all those things, where do you get the background to be able to object to what they're saying?
What's the knowledge curve called? Where basically you push through enough that you realize you don't know much at all. And I think a lot of folks stop before that.
You bring up something interesting.
That's rare.
We're talking about provocateurs and we're talking about Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But there's also there's like 1 million people on Facebook who seem to have some opinion about this or that have no basis for those opinions. And they don't present it as opinions. They're presented as if they're facts.
Facts. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's a big gap in this. I think some people do it as an honest mistake, and I think some people do it willingly.
Social media is it's so easy to forward something that you see that confirms with your own personal
100%.
bias.
100%.
And you haven't checked it out.
I mean, here's some guy on some YouTube channel that is convinced through these quote experiments that the earth is flat. He's proven it right here.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what? No, that's not even a good experiment. To your point, they can get interest from folks by just doubting the credibility of scientific sources and just being like, this guy over here is married to someone who has the same last name as someone who owns a tobacco field. And you're just like, okay, we're trying to draw a line through this. Like they're trying to discredit the source, right? Or there's some group that they've identified that holds anti-science beliefs and they're trying to align what they're saying to that group so people from that group will listen to them, right? So they're like stoking the confirmation bias.
I think also success sometimes causes issues, causes problems. Think about vaccines, how successful we've been at eradicating polio, at eradicating smallpox, all of these things. And now you look around and you go, well, this is not a big deal.
Yeah.
Mumps, what's the big deal about mumps? Come on, what's that?
Yeah.
You don't remember. You were not alive.
You weren't there.
Millions of kids were dying from mumps literally every year.
Go talk to somebody that's got to sleep in an iron lung every night just to continue to live, and they're gonna tell you that polio is pretty terrible.
We don't remember. We don't remember what it was like because the vaccine has been so successful.
Yeah, I mean that is a real problem. There's not a lot of things that I'm certain about. I'm pretty certain we're never going to see extraterrestrial life because we're going to just kill all of ourselves before that happens. Before we get the tech to leave this rock far enough, we're going to be like, nope, it's the measles that got him.
This is why we can't have nice things.
This is exactly why you can't have nice things.
All right, we have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
Well, I can tell you something I've seen that's not good. The Tigers playing baseball. Yeah. That's been not great. 7-17 in their last month.
Shouldn't have done that Trump dance. It poisoned them.
They don't take my calls anymore. Anyway, you still have a whole playoff ahead of you. Maybe we'll see. Who knows?
We should put a link in the show notes in case people don't know what we're talking about. The Trump dance, the day of the Trump dance.
Sure. For the Tigers, let's stoke that fury. I want to plug this week another video from Summoning Salt. Okay. Remember Summoning Salt?
No.
He's an American speedrunner and YouTuber known for his video documentaries about the history of speedrunning records.
Cool.
This guy's got like 2 million subscribers and more than 250 million views on YouTube.
Okay.
Super interesting, super well produced. Last season on this show, I plugged his Super Mario Brothers 3 100% speedrunning video, which was excellent.
Yes.
This past week, I watched Super Mario Brothers The Human Limit with my kids, and it is excellent.
Yeah.
He tells the story of how us, these mere humans, and really a very, very small subset of us, have gotten to within 2 frames of the theoretical limit of speedrunning every level of Super Mario Brothers. This is original OG Super Mario Brothers.
Sure.
It's a crazy story. He does an absolute great job telling it. I love that they have a theoretical in-practice limit that they are now within 2 frames of getting to. So this is
that's amazing.
Sub-seconds.
Sure.
Milliseconds away. The reason they can't get there is because there's a move you have to do that has to be done like 3 times exactly across 3 frames. And they're like, we don't think human beings can do it.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really fascinating. His production value is great. It's basically a 45-minute doc that's great. I'll put a link into the show notes. But if you're a video game fan that played it all during the 80s or 90s, I suspect you'll love this story.
That's cool.
So that's Summoning Salt, Super Mario Brothers: The Human Limit on YouTube. How about you?
I'm going to recommend a few documentaries from PBS's Frontline, 2012's Climate of Doubt, and 2022's The Power of Big Oil, both of which examine the organizations and efforts that have worked to confuse the public and policymakers on climate change.
Well, that's super interesting.
Climate of Doubt investigates the remarkable shift in U.S. politics, how climate change essentially vanished as a critical issue after 2008. The film goes inside the well-funded organized campaign by a network of think tanks and conservative activists that worked to undermine the scientific consensus. It details how this calculated misinformation effectively took climate action off the political table. A chilling look at the politics of manufactured skepticism. The other one, The Power of Big Oil, chronicles the fossil fuel industry's decades-long campaign of denial, doubt, and delay, exposing how companies like Exxon privately confirmed the catastrophic threat of climate change as early as the 70s, but chose to bury the science and fund a massive disinformation effort.
Yeah.
Both are remarkable documentaries. What do you do when someone who has evidence that goes against your interests interests? Yeah, the entire system that supports Frontline is facing an unprecedented and immediate funding crisis due to the cancellation of federal support for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. While you still can, check out PBS's Frontline.
Before you can only find it at the Smithsonian, sadly.
Sure, before the Smithsonian's gone.
That'll be dismantled soon, too. I'm going to check that out and definitely give some more money to PBS because I don't want that to go away.
That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for All This Nonsense, a truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Stu Little.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, AntennaPod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, My Favorite Overcast, or wherever you may get your podcasts from.
Nonsense uses LibreOffice, a powerful free and open source office suite that offers professional word processing, dynamic spreadsheets, stunning presentations, and more. It's fully compatible with Microsoft Office formats, so collaboration is seamless. LibreOffice is cross-platform, private, and continually improved by a worldwide community. Create, share, and innovate without limits. Try the amazing LibreOffice today.
We'll be every Tuesday and Thursday mornings for more nonsense. Please join us.
Do you think we offended anyone with this episode?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, who did we not offend? Hell, we even offended the atheists. The atheists were like, hey, settle down.
What part offended the atheists?
Probably the LibreOffice part, if I had to guess. The atheists don't believe in much, but they are strong Microsoft Office people.